too, I would say. I like textures. I want to hear different textures. Oh, this is advanced. All right, thank you.
There's a lot of this soul cartoon paraphernalia around here.
Yeah, it explains it.
I should just read instead of
Because J-Bet is the
instead of just being perpetually confused.
he's the artistic director of this place. J-Bet, John Baptiste.
Oh, J-Bet.
J-Bet. This is a nickname. J-Bet.
Oh yeah, he was involved in that movie, right?
Yeah, he's the
guy.
He's the guy.
I haven't seen the movie.
He's the hands in the music.
That would help if it were on. Good afternoon, everybody. Feel free to come up, if you want. You don't have to, We're a family here. I'm Kiana Faircloth, host of Artemisy Podcast, and welcome to the National Jazz Museum in Harlem. This is a partnership between the Winter Jazz Festival and the museum, where we're hosting these jazz talks this year, and this particular talk is surrounded around the life and really the work and all that she left behind, Meghan Stabile. And it's moderated by Ms. Kyla Marshell, who's going to introduce you to all of these amazing panelists. But during this panel, and I'm sure you'll say this, we want to invite you to share your memories of Meghan when Kyla cues you to. We definitely want to keep her memory alive as her work is still thriving, and the residuals of all of the work that she put in is still benefiting all of us. So please feel free to share those memories that you have of her and how she touched your life. All right, I'll turn it over to Kyla.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for being here, and those of you who are watching online. My name is Kyla Marshell. I'm a writer, and I'm the marketing associate for this year's Winter Jazzfest. I met Meghan in November of 2010 when I began writing for The Revivalist, which was Revive Music's online magazine and also one of the OK Player sites. I'd heard about what was then Revive Live through an acquaintance earlier that year. And when I finally attended one of their shows, summer of 2010, I was in awe of this amazing community of young, creative, talented, mostly Black artists, as well as the evident bond among all of them. That palpable energy was something I wanted in my life, something I wanted to be a part of. So when I saw the call for writers several months later, I knew it was my way in. Interviewing and writing about the artists in the Revive community gave way to me becoming Meghan's assistant/intern while I was a grad student and in a bit of an existential quandary about what career path I should assume. At the time, I wasn't particularly interested in working in the music industry. I think I was just looking for something to do. But the strange thing that happened is that through working with Meghan, on the shows she was producing and promoting, and then in her transition working at Blue Note Records, I learned a lot that has since become really important foundational knowledge, including about the amazing scene of jazz musicians and artists here. And Meghan taught me how to use Photoshop, which has been really useful. So I'm really honored to be here because I guess it's been like 12 or more years since I met her, and she has touched almost every corner in my life, and she's the way that I know all of you, pretty much. So yeah, that is my connection to this event, and you'll soon hear from our panelists and hear what their connections are. But for those of you who aren't familiar with Meghan's backstory in life and how she got started doing what she did, I just want to give you a little bit of a history. She went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, starting off with a focus in guitar and voice as a singer-songwriter, but then she ended up on the music business track. She was a bartender at Wally's Cafe, where she met a number of people who became pillars in her life and career. One of those people was Igmar Thomas, trumpeter and leader of the Revive big band. Meghan was inspired by the blend of jazz and hip-hop that he and Radar Ellis, another founding member of Revive, were performing in their group Jazz for That Ass, or J4DA. Great name. And part of how she got started booking and advocating for artists was in doing it for that group. In discovering jazz as a college student, Meghan wanted to bring this incredible music and its history to a wider audience. She saw the connections between jazz and hip-hop, and she knew how important it was for the musicians who were performing it to be paid and treated fairly. Revive the Live, the manifestation of all these ideas and passions, had its first concert April 27th, 2006 in Cambridge, Mass. At the Greek Club. I think we have a photo of that flyer, if somebody could bring it up. From there and then on, many of that Boston crew migrated to New York, where Meghan continued to put on shows that combined the traditions of jazz and hip-hop and were not bound by genre or the respectability politics that often kept listeners and performers of jazz and hip-hop separate. You'll see that's the first flyer from the first ever Revive show. That's Radar in the center with a microphone. Igmar is right above him. Many of the artists she worked with as a manager, booker, producer, and promoter were small acts that have since gone on to see great successes, such as Robert Glasper, Anna Wise, King, Thundercat, Brandy Younger, Louis Cato, and more. In later years, Revive evolved to be an organization whose mission was promoting wellness among musicians in a culture that can often be toxic and draining. In 2020, announcing this shift, she wrote, "In a fast-paced, fast food and quick fix society that teaches us to suppress personal feelings and traumas, it is not surprising that many of us succumb to a myriad of physical and mental illnesses. Quick fixes have become the norm, and it's all too easy to fall victim to a culture of self-medication and attempts to cope with life and its difficulties. Within the same society exists one of our most precious and revered art forms, one that serves as the most universally celebrated healing mechanism, music. The music community, known for its power to uplift, must unite to combat all stigma and misinformation related to mental health by promoting messages of wellness through music. Our message not only serves our community of musical innovators, but also the audiences receiving the music and thus humanity as a whole. Fairly or unfairly, musicians will forever be attached to the age-old stereotype of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Though filled with its share of vices, the music industry is also home to some of the world's natural healers. These artists have chosen sound as their wand and utilize art as a weapon to combat a variety of social injustices and devote their artistry of mystical harmony to inspire and comfort. In an effort to build awareness about mental health, we will be celebrating messages of wellness as a core mission of Revive moving forward in 2020 and beyond." Meghan's tragic death last year at 39 is underscored by how much she gave to her friends and community and how hard she fought to find healing for herself. Today is one of many tributes to testify to the breadth of her impact as a friend, mentor, artist, and advocate. Each of the people on this panel and in the video testimonials you'll hear today knew and worked with Meghan in a different capacity and time frame, but for all of us, she had and will continue to have a profound effect on our lives. So I just want to introduce our panelists here, starting to my left. Surya Botofasina is a Southern California native son based in New York for over the last decade. Surya believes in one love through music and all of its mediums. He is the musician who is your favorite musician's friend. He is an actor who has appeared on the critically acclaimed HBO shows Boardwalk Empire and Vinyl. Raised by the example of Alice Coltrane with influences ranging from Sanskrit chanting to classic hip-hop, Botofasina considers all music a blessing to be passed on to the next generations. Next, we have Tariq Khan. As a record producer of 20-plus years, having worked with award-winning talent across multiple genres and with artists from around the globe, Tariq Khan of Blue Note Records, Universal Music, Bilal, and Erykah Badu is no stranger to great artistry. In addition to running HighBreed Music, an NYC Artist Forward platform that just recently signed to Quincy Jones's Quest TV channel, Tariq is a longtime collaborator with Revive Music, where he recorded and co-produced several major projects along Meghan Stabile, including Revive's flagship album, Supreme Sonacy. And Michela Marino Lerman, winner of the 2019 Hoofer Award, is a world-renowned tap dance artist, performer, choreographer, bandleader, educator, and all-around creative spirit. Quincy Jones has said she is an absolute tap dancing star who knows her roots. Most recently, Michela can be seen in the new U.S. Postage Stamp series dedicated to the art form of tap dance. She has performed, choreographed, written, produced, and directed many projects throughout her career, including leading her own group, Love Movement. Performance highlights include the Whitney Museum of Art, Newport Jazz Festival, Jazz at Lincoln Center, and the Marciac Jazz Festival, and co-producing the documentary American Tap. So welcome to our panelists. Oh, wait. Last but not least, on Zoom, all the way from Baltimore, Guy Routté. As a creative executive and entrepreneur, he's the CEO of Schematics LLC and a music supervisor for the 40-Year-Old Version on Netflix and Washington Black series on Hulu. So thank you so much to our panelists for being here. So I want to start off with what I hope is a softball question, which is just, how did you meet Meghan, and then in what capacity did you work with her? Anybody can start, whoever feels called.
No, ladies first.
Hi, everybody. I first met Meghan in, I believe it was 2009, at the Creole Restaurant Jam Sessions. That was a really special time. That was really kind of Revive's arrival in New York. And I don't really know how I stumbled upon that jam session. I feel like I had a gig there, and then that event happened after it. And I was just so excited. I grew up in New York. And up until that point, there really wasn't a presence of, or I hadn't found a larger presence and place to hang out where there were younger people and people that were influenced also by not just jazz, but hip-hop as well. And being a tap dancer, you know, is always a unique journey, finding spaces that welcomed a tap dancer to sit in at a jam session. And Meghan and Igmar were just so, they just got it immediately, and I just felt at home in a way that I had never really found, and I'm from here, you know, and they brought this really special welcoming energy, and then our relationship just kind of took off from there. Yeah.
Hey, what's up? I'm Tariq. Meghan, I got here in 2007, and I think like maybe 3 years into it, Meghan overwhelmingly was the most important person to know in New York City if you were a musician, who was, oh, hello, okay. Yeah, Meghan was definitely, reputation-wise, the most crucial figure in the New York musician, artist, jazz, hip-hop, just the whole scene. She was young and she had just already accomplished so much. Like, by the time I was looking at what Revive Music was doing, she was already running that page on Questlove's OK Player. Just things were moving so fast, and they had this video of Revived Alive, and Igmar Thomas says, da-da-da-da-da, like the theme song, remember that? And I was like, what is this shit? This is crazy, because it just felt so directly applicable to like our generation. So I wanted to meet her. My business partner Nikki Burge and I were like, all right, let's see how we can get her attention. And so she backed out. Like, we tried to set up a get together and a meeting, a coffee or something a couple times. She backed out twice, last minute. And then I hit up her assistant Kaylee at the time, and I was like, look, this is the last time. I'm gonna. If we don't meet now, I'm not going to meet with her again. I told her to tell Meghan that, and that's what Meghan responded to. She was like, "Oh, he's not going to. Okay, let's meet now." So I made a big deal of it. I drove back to Canada. I wanted to make a good impression. I borrowed my cousin's car, his SUV, because it was sweet, and I drove back to New York. I just did a round trip, and pulled up next to Sony Records, where she was, the Sony building where she was working at the time. She came down, she was like, oh, this is a nice whip. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I took her to somewhere in Lower East Side, and we had like a really expensive dinner, and we had, lunch, and like we just connected so, it was like, peas in a pod. It was just such an amazing experience to meet somebody who just agreed. We just agreed on everything. Everything felt so natural. So I met her through that process, and we just took off from there and just started working together in a million ways. So that was my story.
Nice. My name is Surya. It's such a pleasure to be here and honored to be here. In such a spirit that shines as Meghan does, and especially I recognize some people here that have had such direct experiences with her, and have been so touched and inspired to be the best version of the musician or the person that they are, no matter how they express themselves. My meeting Meghan, I feel like I met Meghan a few times, because she had different versions of self that she presented over the course of my knowing her. And quite honestly, I met her in certain places in, like, the Zinc Bar and stuff, and I had no desire to get to know her any further, because I saw so many other people were trying to. And I thought, what a burden it must be to have to take in so much energy all the time. And who's supporting the person that is supporting everyone? This is the question that I had when I first saw her. And not because of her diminutive stature, like, don't get that 5'1" twisted. She was about it. But I just wondered who's supporting her. And so I kind of hesitated to meet her. And the only thing I did say to her when we had a conversation was that I was raised on the shoulders of the women in jazz and music. And I recognize what that energy is. And she carries it. And she has it. And to know that they are carrying her as well, and that love and that spirit is one that will bolster her to do only great things. So it's kind of a weird thing to say when you first meet someone, but in your first conversation, but that's just kind of how I am. Tomorrow's not promised, so I kind of like to get to it quick. And then at a certain point, she found out about my background growing up on an ashram, in California and saw that I was into music that was more about meditation and healing and introspection, and not necessarily, not that there's anything wrong with chords and jazz and scales. I mean, look where we're at. We're looking at Duke Ellington's piano right now. That's unreal to me. But she then found, we found a kinship in this intention that feels near and dear to me. And from there, from there we spoke, from there we talked. And then from there we made a decision that we wanted to spend the rest of our lives together. And so that's kind of like the on the low fact that like I'm her dude. So, but then she, the earth was too small for her, obviously. So she had to join the stars. But that's kind of the arc of my story with Meghan.
And Guy, what about you?
I don't remember the person that introduced us, but it was somebody said, you got to meet my friend, and she rolled on me. This was 2007. I had just started really, I was managing Pharaoh March, and she rolled on me and was like, I want to do a show with Pharaoh March with a band at Le Parchon Rouge. And I was like, okay, and it was like, she's like, no, I got this company, Reliable Live, and I do these great shows. And she had mentioned the show that I think I was at. And I was like, oh, that's, yeah, something at Blue Note or something. I said, okay, well, let's talk about it. We talked about it. We talked about money. I talked to Pharaoh. She mentioned some of the musicians. I want to say Daru was playing drums at the time. And I can't remember who else was in the band, but it was like horns. And she really wanted to do a full-on thing. He had just released his album, Desire. And, she really thought that would, that music would lend well to this format. And I said, cool. So we did. I remember doing the show, Le Parchon Rouge. I remember it wasn't like packed. It was well attended, but it wasn't really like, the way she'd envisioned it. So she kept apologizing to me like, I really do better shows. And this. I'm like, nah, it's cool. It's cool. I like what you're doing. But you got to pay me. And I remember saying, I don't really have, okay. Come with me to the cash machine or whatever, And I remember I was very, very insistent on her paying me. And she got me all the money and I gave it back to her. And I said, pay me when you can. I just wanted to see if you were going to actually make this happen. And she was blown away by that. And I remember my attorney, Kervin Sims, she was saying she needed a lawyer. I said, why don't you meet me? We met at Acme. And I brought Kervin with me. And I was before she came, I told Kervin, I said, this young lady is fantastic. And I see all the energy that she has. I'm a little concerned about her, being eaten up by the big city. So I want to make sure she has people. So let's surround her. You know what I mean? Let's make sure that, and I told her this when I was meeting with her. I said, listen, if you're rocking with these clubs, you're doing these things, if you need any help, you need any cosign, you need anything, I'm here for you because I see your vision and I really believe in what you're doing. And I love your energy and your knowledge. And from then we just became like really, really close friends and worked in many, many capacities, from, label stuff, doing shows together, she would tell people I was her mentor, but I learned more from her than she ever learned from me. And the thing that I say that we bonded the most on is that she was incredibly, incredibly fierce advocate for musicians and for artists. And that was more important to her than anything, is that the artists were respected. The musicians are respected, and she didn't want anybody to, usually in this business, the artists and the musicians are last, and she wanted them first. And I feel the same way, and that's what we bonded over.
Yeah, I remember her referring to you as her mentor, and being with her once when I guess you called her, she called you, and just being so excited because y'all were gonna get on the horn and gossip because y'all had knew all the same people, and having the same job, she loved to talk to you for that reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So now I think we have some video testimonials from people who couldn't be here. So we're going to hear from some more people who knew Meghan remotely. So whenever you're ready, over there.
Hey, my name is Louis Cato. Meghan Stabile is and has always been the dearest of friends to me, the most trustworthy of collaborators and confidants, and truly just a visionary of our time. Some of my favorite memories, it's so hard to pick just one or two, but I think my mind first goes to the early 2000s at Wally's Jazz Club in Boston. I was playing there with Igmar and everybody, reading real book charts off of my laptop, and Meghan was bartending and dreaming while bartending. I remember she had the early first conversations about what would become Revive, the live Revive music, which was all about, as you all probably know, showcasing this historic relationship between hip-hop music and jazz music. And I remember she was so passionate and zealous about presenting the history of that relationship to the public in a way that they could receive it. Like, it was like, you know, I know, like, hip-hop heads would be just as psyched about the jazz as, like, jazz heads are, and vice versa. It just needs to be presented as such, and no one is really doing that. And that was her strength. She had combined passion and vision and brought that to New York. Fast forward a few years later, transformed the scene in a way that it will never be the same. So, love you, Meghan.
I've been struggling to find the words or appropriate memory of Meghan to share, but truthfully, through our close friendship since 18 and all the wild scenarios we've been in, and the ups and downs and what we've shared, I'm actually just reminded how lucky and truly blessed I was, or anyone was, to know her. She was one of the most trustworthy people I've known, and one of the realest ever. From the very first Revive shows that we played to what she built, it was truly remarkable but unsurprising, because sky was the limit for her. She shined a light on so many people who were insecure or lost or had no idea how to even create opportunities. She did that for so many and never asked for much. She was truly one of a kind. Just want to honor her name forever, teach my kids and future generations about her. Yeah, Stabile forever. Love you.
Hi, my name is Scott Barkham, and Meghan Stabile was a dear, dear friend of mine. It's hard to come up with one special memory that I can share here, and I know I don't have a lot of time. So I want to say that, you know, when she first came into my life, she was only in her mid-20s and was producing events on a scale that people twice her age wouldn't have been able to handle. She had her tentacles out into so many amazing communities of jazz musicians, hip-hop musicians, singer-songwriters, and she was helping and mentoring all of them. She was solidly younger than I am, but yet mentored me in many ways and taught me so much about presenting events in New York, and I looked to her ear for guidance. I looked to her ear for confirmation that something I liked was in fact really good. one of the special memories I have is a few events that we did that weren't packed, that were sparsely attended. She was there with the same level of enthusiasm and love for the music that was happening as when it was packed. And I thought that was amazing, that she could see through to the artistry beyond anything else. But she was such a good friend. When I was going through a hard time in the business, like, there was nobody more loyal or dependable than she was. I really can't put it into words, and I tried to reciprocate it wherever I could, but, you know, it was hard to reciprocate, and I'm sure a lot of other people who hear this will agree. It was hard to reciprocate the kind of support you could get from Meghan, because it was so limitless. And she's just someone who, in my mind, she's still alive, and she's so dear to me. And I'm so grateful that I met her, and that I knew her, and that she was part of my life, and that I was part of hers. And Meghan, I will always miss you, and everybody in this music community, we know, and we love you.
My name is Neil Ludewig. I'm a producer, curator, filmmaker, founder of the Harlem Arts Festival. I'm also an EP for the Revive Big Band's first album. I have an agency called Moon 31. I met Meghan back, like 2010, 11. I was working with Robert Glasper in The Experiment in Bilal, and she was sort of the center of it. We would always be at Winter Jazzfest, and her stages, it was at Groove and Sullivan Hall. They would always kind of sell out, but she would often hit me up for different gigs, and one of them, I remember at Berklee College of Music, she recreated Marvin Gaye's Vulnerable album with Aloe Black and Chris Turner and Bilal and Miguel Atwood Ferguson. And the moment that I remember, the music was obviously incredible, but the moment I remember was being backstage and her being asked to say a few words, a few remarks, and being so nervous. She had so much anxiety about speaking, about something that she put together. But she went and spoke, and afterwards her hands were shaking, and she was just this larger-than-life figure back then, right? The New York Times had written that article about her. She was just a boss, creating incredible shows, selling out all the time. And this moment I just reflected on, and she became a little bit less intimidating, a little bit more inspiring. I was like, wow, you're human just like the rest of us. You have all these fears. She had more fears and more issues and more barriers to entry, but it was that conviction, that mission, that purpose, that drive to support the movement and the music and the artists. That was what was so incredible and so inspiring for me, that she became like a mentor, in the projects that I did. So eternally grateful and thankful for her. So just little memory. Thank you, Meghan. You are so inspiring, and I miss you and I love you. And rest in peace. Thank you for everything you've given to us and to me.
We'll have a few more testimonials later on, but so one thing that I've heard a lot of people say is that, not just that Meghan was a special person, but that what she was doing with Revive was a unique and special kind of thing. And so I wondered if you each could speak to that from your various standpoints, experiences as artists, producers, managers, engineers. You all have a different part of the music industry you're in. So from your perspective, what was it about how she operated her business and her project that was unique?
Well, I had the honor of being a part of some of those early LPR shows with the big band, and so first to see that evolution from the Creole sessions to that was astounding, and how quickly it happened for them, and then to see it blossom from that step, forward. Meghan was just a powerhouse. As a young person being around her, I knew that the time that I was spending with her was so special, that it was a once in a lifetime experience that I, as a young woman, would be able to be around a mentor and an older sister like her. I knew I would never have that, so I absorbed every drop. I spent every moment I could around her, you know, till the sun came up so many times. I just remember how personal each relationship she had with every single person that was involved with a project. She had a personal one-on-one relationship with each person, and I just knew that, again, that was a type of leadership that inspired me, that she was so personal with everybody and so caring with everyone. So those were really like huge gems of that very early time, getting to spend time with her and be around her. And yeah, I'm gonna pass it to you.
Thank you. I like that personal relationship with each person, because that's definitely how she operated. Compartmentalized relationships. Well, I mean, one of the most visible things she was doing, obviously, was this combination of jazz and hip-hop culture and representing them kind of like they're coming from the same place, because they are, and that they actually they meld very well together. And so when you're going to her shows, you got these big bands. She'll have, I remember she had that one with Miguel Atwood Ferguson. Remember that one? It was in middle of the city, outdoors, and that was crazy. But then she'd always have like some hip hop legend as a feature in front of a group. And coming from where I grew up in Montreal, I'd never seen that. So that was definitely like the unique theme that was repeated throughout all these different just events and initiatives she was doing, was mixing these two. But I think the important thing is, you know, when you talk to her, she didn't want to be pigeonholed as, I'm the jazz mixed with hip hop person. That's not where she was coming from. She was basically saying, like, this is just music. This is where jazz is now. Like, how are jazz artists supposed to just be pretending like we're in the 60s with bebop and ignoring all the music that's happened since? And that it's a living, breathing art form, and that the only way for it to really be, to have its full impact and stay relevant, is for it not to feel overly stale and academic, you know, because there's a lot of academia around jazz culture for young people. You know, they're studying within those institutions a lot of the time. And to me, it felt like she had taken this, she'd taken jazz out of the school system and out of just like little jazz clubs for like jazz nerds. And in a way that, like, I don't feel like anybody's done that with classical music, but they could. So that was something that I think was this really unique thing she was pushing for, but her long-term vision for it was much bigger than it's a fusion, because it wasn't about fusing two genres of music. It was about making it make sense, and it meaning something today different than it meant back then. Yeah.
I think what strikes me the most about Meghan's determination, about Meghan's just almost blind confidence, was that there was a belief in her that was very deeply rooted within something that just wanted to touch the spirit of the music, that wanted to touch the spirit of what creates the music, that wanted to touch the spirit of what uplifts us all. And she did not want to be selfish with this at all. And at the same time, she did not want to be undervalued. It's a very interesting paradox to consider, how to most value yourself, but to not be selfish and do it in something that feels nebulous, such as the arts. This is where she stayed at. This was her prism. This is where she was at the apex of that prism. And I found it very beautiful that her determination was also part of a faith that sometimes that she openly and courageously, emotionally courageously lets you know about, especially if you're close to her. And in that particular sense, I feel that, you know, her best chapter with Revive was being written and still is right now. And that's where I feel personally, just for her, not for any entity, but I feel personally inspired to make sure that we carry that torch and of her determination and spirit that she looked to share.
So, for me, she was just a visionary, right? And she was very clear. You know, she's an artist and she's a creative. She's a musician. She's, you know, and she's creative in her bones. And she was clear about what she wanted to see from top to bottom. You know, if she was doing a performance, she knew who she wanted in the performance, and she knew what she wanted the flyer to look like, and the tone of it, and the feel of it. And you know, when we were working on Supreme Sonacy, and she was like, she knew every detail down to the performance of the album. You know, that we did at La Passion Rouge, and she's just really, really, really visionary, but encompassing. She felt the importance of the detail. She was very detail oriented, and I was always really, really, really impressed with that. Things that people don't care about or don't understand how it affects the whole of how you feel was very important to her. And Tariq, you're right, she didn't see it as I'm putting jazz with hip hop. She just saw it as there's this incredible crop of young musicians. They're influenced by hip hop, and these other hip hop musicians are all influenced by jazz, and this just makes sense. And it's not a mashup. It is what is, you know. So yeah, her vision was you know, unmatched. That's what I'll say. Her vision was unmatched.
Yeah, and speaking to that in terms of, you know, details that no one else cared about, one thing I was always impressed with was the flyers for the shows, because they were so beautifully designed.
Yeah.
I was at Roland Fox.
Le Fox, yeah.
So beautiful, and that was something that it didn't even occur to me until I saw it. Like, actually, this does make a difference. It is nice that there are these beautiful documents, like that are like art that you to help you remember this show that you went to. Do you all have a favorite Revive show that you attended over the many years?
I do.
What's yours?
It was because me and her did this. We were producing the Supreme Sonacy record, and then she was like at LPR. She was like, I want to do this whole thing live with the string section, and we're going to put the whole band in the middle of the room, like the Beatles. And everybody's going to stand around in a circle. So I think they partnered with Boiler Room. And
yeah, it's
that
online
show
to
was
stream
off the hook. And I remember, so on one of the songs on the record that we were doing with Sling Bomb, the keyboard player on that is this virtuosic, or piano player, I should say, is this virtuosic dude, Eldar Jangarov. But Eldar wasn't able to make it last minute. And then Megan's like, what do we do? So we called Corey Henry, and Corey's like, yo, I'll be there in like 20 minutes. He just shows up, walks downstairs. He's never heard the song. He's got his backpack on, just sits there and just takes the whole thing to another level. And there's a video on YouTube from that, which is Sling Bomb, I guess at LPR. And it's so beautifully filmed. And yeah, that was just this moment in time. I'm like, this is really great. Because normally, when you finish a record and they do the album release, it's nothing like that. That's for sure. So that was definitely my favorite. That was amazing.
That was my favorite too, by the way. That was absolutely an unreal show. All the moving parts. It was being filmed. It was, Boiler Room was broadcasting it live, and walking through and kind of bouncing around and running up to the booth and seeing what was happening. These musicians playing and reimagining LPR. You know what I mean? like it wasn't like we're gonna be on the stage here. We're gonna put you in the middle of the room, and it was the promise of what I thought the record side of Revive could be. This great record was made, and Tariq, you worked so hard on that project. It was ridiculous, and then to be able to perform it live in that way, really, really was an incredible culmination of what I thought this company was about and what her vision was.
And LPR has the best multi-track recording in the city. So when I got those stems back, I was like, oh, hell yeah, this is going to be dope. So that was just from a nerdy perspective, also a very satisfying experience. Audio nerd, yeah.
Surya, Michela, do you have one?
I just am struck by, here we are in the middle of Winter Jazzfest, and I'm struck by how, as a musician, that and as just a person who is just a fan of music in all of its forms, especially in the diaspora, how it was very apparent that during Winter Jazzfest, if you did nothing else, you needed to check out her stage. Like, you might ignore everybody else actually in the entire festival, let's be real. But her particular stage that she was curating, you knew not only was it going to be mind-blowing as far as the musical component, but it was going to be a collection in the true spirit of community of people who we went to school with, people who we studied with, people who lived together in, 6 heads in one room because we're all just trying to survive. New York is an unforgiving city. Don't forget it. And she did not forget it. And her way, in my eyes, of acknowledging that was to have this incredible amount of community that became, honestly, like a musical holiday, like Jazz Christmas, So that to me is something that I truly enjoy about her visionary aspects.
She made it feel like home.
For me, I think the most memorable one was the first concert at LPR, and getting to be a part of that. Again, I just want to reiterate that being a tap dancer and being welcomed into this community was like, I would have to use a Christmas analogy as well. It's like a Christmas wish, just like twinkling down from the sky. It couldn't have been more of a dream come true. And then added on top of it, these, hip-hop stars that I was admiring in high school are all of a sudden, I'm on a bill with them because of Meghan. I had to go off to the bathroom a couple of times just to cool myself out because I was so excited to be there. I didn't know how to hold it all together.
And what year was this?
This was 2010, I believe, or 11. The first LPR show. And I just remember the energy being so electric because it was one of the first big Revive shows that had happened at that point. And I remember Igmar with the scores and the charts, and it was such a raw energy with everybody with their excitement for this first big performance with the big band and everything. And the other thing I'd like to say is just once the Zinc Bar sessions began, the way the community built around that is really also a very huge standout favorite of the time with Meghan was the very beginning of that Zinc Bar time.
Yeah. For me, I'm just like running through my memory, and I'm like, how many dozens and dozens and dozens of shows did I go to? Like literally. So I don't even know if I have a favorite, but one thing that comes to mind is that, like, really what I think of is like all of the conversations I had, like all of the hanging out. Like that's really what comes to mind. I mean, there were some really beautiful performances. There was, I think it was Thundercat's first ever show in New York, which was in November of 2011 at LPR, which was beautiful. But, you know, I think about like Radar DJing afterward and playing a song I asked him to play and shouting me out. Like, I think about things like that, or like Napalm from Hiatus Coyote, her first show here was in October 2012, just her and guitar at Rockwood. Very small venue. Were you there?
Yeah.
It was a really fun night.
Oh, yeah, I was there.
It was a super, super, super fun night. Guy was not there. Pharoah Monch was there. Jean Grey was there. But when I think of that night often. It's one of my memories of Meghan for something really, really, really small, which was looking at each other across the room, and she rolled her eyes, and I knew why she was rolling her eyes. It was the person sitting next to her and whatever they were saying, and I was like, I already know. You know, I have a lot of really, really, really small moments like that, as opposed to like a story of an epic time together, which is interesting, having all those really small moments come back. I'm going to read a statement from Simone Eccleston, who is also someone who worked with Meghan. She used to work at Harlem Stage. Now she's at Kennedy Center, running hip-hop at the Kennedy Center. She wanted me to read this. Meghan Stabile made magic and was magic. A petite powerhouse with a bold and expansive vision, she did exactly what she set out to do. She revived music. Her brilliance not only lay in her ability to conceptualize groundbreaking and extraordinary projects, whether it be concerts, albums, stages, and beyond, it also lay in her capacity to create a multifaceted platform that contextualized them, promoted them, documented, archived, and toured them. She was a one-stop shop and titan in the making. She knew that in order to create history, you had to be able to tell your story, and tell that story she did. She created a community and a movement that ushered in a new vanguard. She was the breath of fresh air that music needed, and she created a blueprint that countless others followed and drew inspiration from. She was truly a genius. The thing that was amazing about Meghan was that her genius wasn't the most incredible thing about her, it was her heart. She genuinely believed in people and loved them deeply. She saw the best in them and even saw the things that they couldn't see. She spoke to and invested in their possibilities, and everyone in her orbit bloomed. She always made those around her feel seen, loved, and appreciated. She made sure that people felt like they belonged, that they had a community and an extended sense of family, for sure. Without fail, you always knew that she had your back. She was a diamond created under pressures that one could never have imagined, yet she persisted, resisted, and fought until the end. She will forever be our superhero and our supreme uniter. In every life and heart that she touched, her legacy lives on. I am forever grateful that she was my sister, but most of all, my friend. We're gonna see a few more video testimonials now. Yay.
It took a lot of selflessness and foresight to do the work that Meghan did, to be a bona fide visionary whose understanding of music and execution as a producer and label head was considerate of the present landscape of innovators as well as the possible future. Meghan was always thinking about and planning for the music that didn't exist yet. She was a once-in-a-lifetime talent whose passion for pushing boundaries will never, ever be forgotten. She is the driving force behind the careers of so many artists in the spotlight and so many of us behind the scenes, myself included. Meghan was called the Supreme Uniter because she had a knack for seeing the field and bringing the very best people into the room to create something special, something that could never be duplicated. And she did it over and over again. She was adept at this kind of alchemy and used it to build a table instead of asking for a seat. She won't always get credit for the movement she engineered, but those of us that have benefited from her friendship, guidance, and diligence in service to the music we love should always be compelled to pay it forward. To do so in the spirit of continuing her dream of artistic unification and transcendent healing sound. If you knew Meghan, you know the frequency of her movement when you hear it. May you always remember her vibrant spirit whenever the beat drops. The word revive means to restore to life or consciousness. In the spirit of the Revive brand ethos, I think the best way to honor Meghan is to exalt her name and carry the baton, to continue the work of discovering, championing, and showcasing excellence in music, to challenge ourselves and our communities, and to be the standard bearers of innovation. But even more, may we all remember to show up for the people around us who are suffering in their time of need. Much love, Meghan. You have my heart. It was and always will be revived till the wheels fall off.
That's Kara Slam. She was a writer for The Revivalist.
Pull up.
We're figuring out our Uber Eats order back here. It's very serious.
Hi there, this is Lydia Liebman. I'm a publicist and a promoter, and I count Meghan as one of the main mentors and inspiration for me that I've had in my career thus far. I honestly don't think that I would be here in this position if it wasn't for Meghan. Something about Meghan that I really admired about her is that she really was open to taking chances. And she saw things in people, in artists, in other people like myself that were in the business that other people missed. You know, she had an eye for things, and she was really willing to take a chance on someone or something if she felt that that she believed in them. And that is something that I know every musician that has passed through her doors can attest to, but it's something that I also can attest to. Because it was really Meghan who kind of took me by the hand when I first came to New York in 2014 and kind of guided me through how to navigate this entire scene. And I'm so grateful for that, because there was no other woman of, of a similar age to mine, within the kind of the same generation doing what she was doing. And I just do not know where I would have been if I hadn't seen that. So for as much as she did for every musician that she helped, she did just the same for people like me who really needed a role model, and really needed someone to see them. And Meghan did that for me. So I am missing Meghan horribly, these days, because I really do miss like her words of encouragement, even when things were not particularly great, or if things were tough. She always found something hilarious to say, something encouraging to say. There are texts from Meghan that I have screenshot on my phone that I look at when I'm feeling down, or that I'm feeling that I need a little kick, because that's what she did for me. And Meghan is here on my wall. I keep this picture of her and I in my office. It serves as a constant inspiration, and I just look forward to the day that I see her again. So Meghan, we love you, we miss you, but your legacy is going to live on forever because of the impact that you've had, and we are all just so grateful for you.
Hi, I'm Alita, and I had the pleasure of working with Meghan between 2015 and 2020. And Meghan taught us how to transform dreams into reality, because she was a visionary, she was a leader, and all the time that I worked with her, I trusted her deeply because I knew that she would see a way forward when so many other people would have just stopped and given up. She wanted to use her gifts to bring joy and healing back to her communities. And she did that through music. And Meghan saw these connections that other people would miss, and she would make them happen. And one example of this is Suite for Maud Dukes. Back in, I believe, late July of 2017, Meghan produced an incredible show at Lincoln Center out of doors that was free and open to the community. As long as you got in line early enough, anybody could come. And it was with the Revive Big Band and with Miguel Atwood Ferguson and Pharoah Monk and so many other incredible musicians and performers and artists. And the whole time that show was going on, I remember seeing short little Meghan standing on the other side of the stage, just off stage, smiling so big. Like, Meghan could really light up as a person, and I think she lit up other people. She was magic. And I'm not surprised she shifted her focus to healing by the end of her life, because Meghan knew what her people needed.
And this last one is from Don Was of Blue Note Records.
Hello, I'm Don Was, the president of Blue Note Records. Sorry I can't be there in person today. We are adrift on the Blue Note cruise all week, and it was not possible to be in New York. Well, it's been half a year already, but it still seems surreal to be talking about Meghan in the past tense. She was a vibrant, generous, warm-hearted, and lovely person. When I first got the gig at Blue Note, it was essential to be completely aware not just of the great established existing artists, but of the new exciting artists who were still considered underground but poised to change the face of music. And I spent every night online listening to new artists, and it seemed that every time I heard something original that resonated, something that was fresh and original and cool, following the links always led back to the same place, the Revivalist website. Meghan seemed to be at the heart of everything revolutionary that was taking place in 2011. On my first day in the New York office, the very first meeting was with Robert Glasper, who came in to play very rough mixes of what was to become Black Radio 1. And the second meeting was my introduction to Meghan. By the end of the day, it was clear that the winds of change were blowing strong on the border of hip-hop and jazz. And not everything was as commercially successful as Black Radio, but all of it contributed to a major and irrevocable cultural shift. And none of it would have happened without the selfless and tireless enthusiasm of Meghan Stabile. We became good friends. Eventually, we created a Revive Blue Note imprint for her, and she was responsible for the creation of some wonderful music. Ultimately, though, I don't think her heart was in doing budgets on an Excel spreadsheet or filing AFM dues. I think the reason she was so good at working with artists was that at her core, she was an artist, albeit a somewhat reluctant performer. She lived like an artist, thought like an artist, understood artists, and understood art. And that's what made her so brilliant at what she did. It really differentiated her from most other impresarios. I hope she knew what a difference she made, how loved and respected she was, and how irreplaceable she's going to be. I'm really grateful that all of you at Winter Jazzfest have taken a moment to honor her memory. She really forged a new trail through the music business, and she's going to live forever in all of the timeless music that was created along that path.
Before we open it up to anyone in the audience who wants to share anything, a favorite memory of Meghan or a favorite Revive show attended, or maybe even any questions. I don't know if people have questions. I just want to ask this one last question of our panel, which is if you could share a favorite memory of Meghan or a lesson learned or something you're going to take forward from her life and legacy as you live on.
For me, something that is the most impactful, again, returns to her care for others and her selflessness and her devotion to the people that she loved. And one night when she was particularly kind of stressed, she kind of like grabbed my hand and she said, "I'm just really happy you're here because you don't want anything from me. You're just here." And that never left me. And I knew how tired she was in that moment in time, and I knew the energies around her, and it meant everything to me in that moment that I could just provide any type of comfort to her. And because she made me feel so safe all the rest of the time. So I just want to continue in that legacy of, and particularly for young women artists on the scene, to keep that idea alive of protecting each other, looking out for each other, and creating those safe spaces for people to just exist and be themselves and not feel pulled in a million different directions. So I just really am dedicated profusely to pushing that forward, that legacy of Meghan's forward, of just love and safety for everyone on the scene.
I was blown away by how, you know, Meghan was passionate for the success of other artists and musicians, but it wasn't that she was passionate, like she was mad aggressive about it. She was in your face about it. She was, you know, so many of us are cautious in our interactions with people. She was not. She was, you knew instantly whether she liked you or did not like you. And, you know, when it broke down to it, she usually had good reasons. If she wasn't giving somebody a time of day, it's because they weren't coming at her in the right way. And so I learned a lot about just operating in New York through watching her behavior. And, you know, she, like, we were really close, and she, you know, she looked like she could have been my sister, you know, like we, very similar sense of humor and just like obnoxious behavior at times. And she screamed at events. She wasn't reserved. Like, she would just, if she liked something, she would shout from the back of the room, and it would be as loud as the horn player on stage. And that shit was hilarious. You know, every single phone call for like the past 5 years, she'd end the phone call, "Tariq, we're the same person." Because like we never had a disagreement. We did all these records together. We were in projects, you know, we were doing Freelance and Brent Burkhead and their Supreme Sonacy, Brandy Younger's projects, like all these albums she'd put out on her imprint, and we didn't have one disagreement the whole time. When I was, you know, artists are, when you're making records, artists so often just want it to be done. They want their product, they're sick, they're hyped, they're excited about it. And me, I'm very slow. I'm like double, triple, quadruple, quintuple checking everything in every mood to make sure that it doesn't suck. And so she was getting impatient with her Supreme Sonacy record. She's like, "Is it ready?" I'm like, "It's not ready." And then I was like, "I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to do something special with it. I want every song to sound like it's from a different era. And it's going to take a little more time." And she was patient with it. She after the first time when I explained it, she gave me the benefit of the doubt. And then when it was done, she was just like, that was totally worth it. Thank you. And so she had this, she was aggressive, but she was also patient. And yeah, hilarious. You know, I just looking through my texts, and I don't know which camera, you probably can't see this, but we had a dog named Tips, and she had a dog named Boots, and they got married. We brought them together, and Nikki, who worked with me, and Nikki was filming. Nikki, we have probably 75 Revive shows filmed that my business partner was filming. So all these amazing memories. But I'm looking at the text, and I sent this to her, and Meghan responds, "Nikki just sent this to me. When did we do this?" Laughed my ass off. And then I was like, it was their wedding days. And she goes, "Oh, that's effing hilarious." And then she goes, "Aw, they never got to have sex." That's the end of the conversation. Yeah. So it was never a dull moment, and she's a very dynamic individual. And, you know, we really miss her. Like, she established my career and so many other people's almost single-handedly. Like, I was unknown, and all of a sudden, bam, everything was moving. I never had somebody in my corner like that before. So Yeah, aggressive, hilarious, beautiful, talented, and a great singer. She really was. So that's it. That's what I got right now.
I'm moved to think of, she and I took this drive in LA, where I'm from. We went to the beach. This was last April, about 6 weeks before she took off to the stars. And we took this drive to the beach, and I was waiting for a parking spot, because that's what you do in LA. And this dude got out of his car because I wasn't moving fast enough for him. And so he comes up to me, the driver's window, like, yo, like, be a team player, like, help everybody else get this parking spot. And I was like, bro, the only team you're on is yourself. So you can peace out from the window. Because I looked to my right, and I saw my beautiful lady getting ready to fire off. Which was, like, partially to me painful, because I wanted to let her know, like, you're delicate. You don't need to fight anymore. You don't need to fight a thing anymore. Not only do you need to not fight a thing ever again, but you need to show it love. Because that compassion is what's going to let this universal thought that you have really continue. But she was affected. She was very, she needed a minute. She barely talked to me for like the first half hour that we were at the beach, because she needed to release some of the energy that aggressively met her. So I thought of her delicate nature, amongst all her strength, amongst all her determination, the amount of delicate nature that she has, and that vulnerability. I think we all should check in with our own vulnerability and our own delicate nature and nurture that. Because if you don't, who will? And then I think of another memory to touch on what Tariq was saying. She and I were on the phone till, like, just young in love, man. We're just on the phone all hours of the night. And I mentioned to her, we always talked about different singers. We spent hours talking about Jodeci. And we were talking about that era, and Whitney Houston came up. And she was like, oh, if you knew little girl Meghan right now and you say that. I was like, why? And she went in and sang note for note, I Have Nothing, over the phone. And it brought me to tears, because Meghan's voice is like water. Amongst all her accomplishments, all I ever wanted to see her do was to sing that beautiful gift that was given from the divine to her, for her to sing without fear and know that she could be a part of that healing energy just as well, not only from behind the stage or to the side of the stage, but to feel the energy exchange that some of us feel when we perform. Those are some of my things that I carry with her, but more than anything that I carry is just her telling me that she loved me. That's when somebody who you know, when they truly tell you that they love you, every portion of you, every part of you, that is something that I believe, no matter what happens in the world, that will carry us. And I feel that she carries it for me and for us collectively.
Yeah. Just the quiet moments, and we were both very big on birthdays, and we would always make sure that we spoke to each other. And like Tariq, I was looking at past text messages, and just quiet moments. We spent a lot of time in the chaos of the business, and but we were really friends, and we really loved each other, and that was my homie for real. And so we had a lot of offline, conversations, and we hung out a lot. And the thing that I'll remember, one of the things I remember the most is we were at Art of Cool Festival in North Carolina, 2017, and Big Band just did a show. We all left the Big Band show and went over to see Rakim. Rakim was playing, and I got a phone call. My mom passed away, and she was really there for me in a big way. And you know, we stayed up all night, and Combat Jack was with us as well, Pharaoh, a bunch of people. It was very, very beautiful the way she took care of me in one of the most vulnerable times of my life. So, like I said, she often would tell people that I mentored her, but she raised me in a lot of ways too. Love you, Meghan. It's the first time I've spoken about Meghan publicly since she's passed, and probably be the last time. So, to be honest with you, but you know, I loved her dearly, and it's been very difficult to grapple with. So, I love all y'all. You know what I'm saying? I love all y'all who she brought into my life. You know, and shout out to my man Otis. I saw him earlier. The first album we put out on Revive through Blue Note was Otis' album. That was a big deal for all of us too. Thanks, Kyla.
Yeah. If anyone would like to share anything, we have a microphone for you to speak into. Kiana's going to pass it around.
Hello, everybody. My name is Otis Brown. As Guy just alluded to, the record we did together was a very special moment. The Revive Blue Note imprint. I don't think Revive had ever done it. Blue Note had ever done an imprint with another entity. And for it to happen, it was, all Meghan. And I call this I tell Guy all the time too, it's like a lot of my life is built around the family Meghan created. You know what I mean? Like everybody here, Guy, the people who are part of my record, our careers. I wrote something, if it's okay, it's not long, I'm just gonna read it really quick that I wrote. I remember the exact day and moment we met. From that moment, we were like instantly family. I called her Megs or my Megals. And over the course of our friendship, she never failed to be in my or anybody else's corner. She advocated and fought for me, created opportunities for me in my music, and advised and encouraged me in every aspect of life. Before we ever worked on any music together, she was my friend, a good friend. And if you were honored enough to be a friend with her, like Guy said, she took that role in your life very seriously, and I hope I took it seriously with her too. And the lion's share of our convos, we did a lot of business together, but we would get on the phone and be an hour and a half and be like, wait, what did I call you for? Oh, well, we need this. But like Don said, she wasn't one to want to do Excel spreadsheets and stuff. So like, oh, wait, I need the budget for the record, or Guy's waiting for this. It'd be 2 hours after we talked that we would forget what it was. She had a vision for people's careers, mine especially, but she had that vision for our entire music community, I think. She almost single-handedly created an entire scene and opportunities for people to present their vision and art to audiences. And I paused, I was like, think about that, like in New York, in the music world, this bastion of music and all the things that go on, run by mostly white men, this 5'1" woman of color created this thing that changed the scene for good. Like you can go in clubs now and see Robert, it seems normal, and it was not normal to see hip hop artists and jazz or R&B artists and jazz. I remember we did a Revive Big Man show, tribute to Tribe, and Native Tongues came, and Fife's mom was there, Jerobi was there. Like that was not happening in New York to the extent it was before Meghan started doing it. I'm leaving what I wrote, but some of the things that amazed me about Megs was that she fought for you like you were her family, whoever it was, if you were in that community. And that community is very vast. She advocated and got you in performance venues you wouldn't have gotten in yourself, or got you at festivals. I was on the main stage at the Atlanta Jazz Festival. That would have never happened. I didn't have a manager. She was the one that promoted it and managed it. And she did that for a lot of people and took it serious. Just to touch on the record, Don's told me that it's one of his favorite things he's done since he's been at Blue Note. And maybe it's about the music. I think a lot of it was because he knew the culture shift that Meghan was a part of and that he kind of latched onto by doing that Revive imprint with Guy and Jason and all the other people involved. But from the beginning, I did a Kickstarter, had to do a video. She came to the Vanguard, filmed my video. You remember?
I was there in the empty Village Vanguard.
Right, at the empty Village. I was playing that week. She came, did a video. We did a Kickstarter. I got the record done, blah, blah, blah. She was like, I'm going to take it to Don for this Revive imprint. And it just, you know, I think my career in life is a microcosm of how she saw things for everybody in our community, you know. And it wasn't just like you said, it's not just jazz and hip hop. And to Michela's example, she was our culture, you know what I mean? And I think that was the difference between her and other promoters. She understood what this culture was. And there's a whole generation of musicians that grew up in the 90s. Of course we love hip hop. We couldn't not hear hip hop growing up. So why is the jam session as small? Just bebop, and you can only play this way, or the jam session here, you can only play hip hop. When those sessions at Creole were happening and we used to play them, like, it was the only place you can go where everything was accepted. You know, singers would come in and do a hip hop version of, you know, Autumn Leaves or whatever. Michela would come up and dance on Trade Eights with in a song. You know, you weren't seeing that in New York, and it really, really changed the game. You know, she's still, I talk to Meghan a lot still, you know what I mean? And like Guy said, it's my first time talking publicly about her. But like, we're so glad we're doing this, and I know that, you know, everybody says, I hope her legacy lives on. I know it will, because it was a culture shift, and it changed everything in New York music, and in, you know, and as an extension in the world. So yeah, I love her. Will always love her dearly. She was like my sister. So yeah.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matthew Allen. I'm a music writer and a TV producer, and former writer of the Revivalist / Revive music. It's so cool to see all of you guys here, just because it's like vindication of just how important Meghan was. I'm not sure how. There's a music podcast that I love called The Music Snobs. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it, but I listen to this podcast quite religiously, and it's these 4 guys who talk about music, you know, mostly black music, and they're very, very knowledgeable. And I remember they made references to people that and projects that, like, oh, that's Meghan and Revive's thing. I remember they brought you up. They said one of their favorite songs was you and Gretchen Parlell's cover of "Still the One." You're Still the One. They mentioned this one album called Red Balloon by this guy Gizmo that Radar was on, that Derek Hodge produced. And I was like, wow, like, that's so cool. I'll never forget the time that I saw Kendrick Lamar do his first Untitled on the Colbert Report, and I'm like, that Terrace Martin and Thundercat and Bilal, like, those are all the Revive and OK Player musicians. Like, what's he doing
Anna
working
Wise.
with? And Anna Wise from, yeah, like, wow. And I was just so happy about that. And that was after I had, you know, I just felt so great just to be adjacent or a part in some small way of that community. I was an aspiring music writer in 2012. I'd written for free for about 3 years up to that point, and I saw this beautiful online magazine called The Revivalist. It was literally like an online magazine that was immaculately made, and I was like, I got to be a part of this. So I tracked Meghan down at this NYU panel discussion in the rain in early 2012, and Jean Grey was there, and Jean Grey said, you know, the combination of jazz and hip hop is coming, and it's really blurring the lines of what jazz is thought to be. Robert Glasper is about to put out a record that completely shatters what people think about jazz, which eventually became Black Radio 1. And that's the first day I met Meghan. And I told her about how impressed I was and how I wanted to be down. And she told me about all the stuff that she did other than the Revivalists, which was the promotions and the shows. And then I went on YouTube and I saw the Pete Rock, Robert Glasper, Stephen Harris show that had gone on and all this other stuff. I was like, wow, I can't. And I was so mesmerized by all these musicians, and I wanted to just write about them because I knew that they weren't being written about, and I knew that they had to have a voice the same way that mainstream people had a voice. And the crazy thing about that is that because of that, now I have a voice. A lot of people are writers, but not a lot of writers have voices. And because of Meghan, I was able to become a writer with a voice. I was able to write about things that I thought that were important. You know, writing I'm sorry, I can't. I'm a far better writer than a public speaker. Plus, I'm just very emotional inside. I'm trying to hold it together. But I was just so happy to have met her and known her and have her tell me how good I was and encourage me to be, you know, to keep writing. My first video piece, I wanted to be in video, and my first independent video piece I did was for Revive. I was able to do an interview with Jose James and Taylor McFerrin, and I got to meet all of these great musicians who are doing great things for great people like you, Otis, like Radar, John Baptiste, Thundercat, Brandy Younger, the Baylor Project. I got to Robert Glasper, Derek Hodge, Chris Dave. I remember the first time I made Meghan laugh. I remember that, too. I said after a meeting with her and another guy with Revive, Eric, and we were talking about Chris Dave. I said, you know, Chris Dave, you know what he reminds me of? He's kind of like if Stuart Copeland was a gospel drummer. That's what Chris Dave is. And Meghan laughed so hard at that. She's like, I'm going to text Chris that right now. I'm like, you know Chris Dave? I was still like I was trying to be like cool and try to be a part of the community, but I was still just a fan of all these people. And, you know, I don't want to ramble on too much, but I was just really, really glad to have known her. And I'll end it by this. I write for the Griot now. I'm a daily entertainment writer for music and culture. And a lot of that was because Meghan gave me the space and the encouragement, the constant encouragement over years of time that I was on the right path and I was doing the right thing. And that what I was writing about was important. And one of the things I did was cover the Robert Glasper residency at the Blue Note. I went to multiple shows to write a big, big piece. Because I'm like, why should New York Times write a piece like that? We should write that because we're a black publication. And one of the last shows I went to, like the penultimate show I went to, was the Revive Big Band show. And you were there, and Radar was there, and Igmar was there, and Simone was there, and Eric was there. It was like being at a family reunion. And once again, it was that vindication feeling, like, wow. And it was so beautiful. And the last thing I'll say is that the last thing that I'll say is that the promotion photo for that show was a picture of Robert hugging Meghan from behind. I was there when that picture was taken because that was the last time I saw Meghan alive, at that night at Webster Hall, which was also the last time I was at a live show before the pandemic. That was the Revive stage at Winter Jazzfest. And the first time I came back to Winter Jazzfest was on Saturday at the Revive show. And so I just wanted to say those things real quick. And I just wanted to thank Meghan for everything she did. And I feel awful because that is a void that will never be filled, and I feel really bad for all of us because of it.
Thank you, Matthew.
Hi, sorry, I'm supposed to be producing the show, but I wanted to take my work hat off because I also knew Meghan, and I just wanted to share how incredibly generous she was with her time, with her knowledge, with, you know, everything about her. And when I moved to, before I even moved to New York, actually, it just was so powerful that I can't remember how we ended up connected, and we had a phone call and realized we were kind of passionate about the same things, and she suggested meeting up. So the person I moved to New York, also another Brit, with, and we met her and we talked about what we did, and, you know, and she just supported us so wholeheartedly, immediately, and made time for us to come and, you know, sit in a cafe and have a coffee and hear what we were doing, and you know, and that was just, you know, that was just Meghan. She was always in everyone's corner, and she was a mentor to so many women as well in a you know, field that can be so competitive, and that was never her energy. You know, her energy was uplifting and kind of championing everyone, and it was so powerful and so profound just to have the opportunity to be her friend and to learn from her and to witness her and spend time with her. And it, you know, I always think we would, you know, we didn't know each other deeply, but I always felt a kind of sisterhood with her, and would be so happy when we were in the same place and, you know, I was touring and she'd pop up and we'd greet each other, and it was always a kind of bright spot. And her shows were always the things that I made time to go and see because, you know, as everyone said, she was a visionary. It was important to be there, and I just wanted to share that because, you know, she was so incredibly wonderful, and as you say, it's a void that's never going to be filled, but also a community that we all take forward, and, you know, I feel that, and whilst I'm always going to feel like she's going to pop up at a show, but she's always going to be with us at all these shows, and, you know, as we all move forward.
I have a quick comment, real quick. I was also at that show at Webster Hall, and I had just moved here about 3 months prior from Washington, D.C., where I was hosting a jazz show for 16 years, and I used to play the music that Meghan produced, Supreme Sonacy particularly. And coming here and being at Webster Hall at my very first Winter Jazz Festival, at that Revive Big Band concert, it felt like I was being hugged by the city. Like, it literally felt like a welcome that I couldn't have asked for ever. Like, it was an incredible, incredible night. I remember Nicholas Payton was playing with the band, and I think Dee Dee Bridgewater got up and did A Night in Tunisia with him, and I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I remember Meghan getting up on stage and just emoting for, it seemed like, about 20 or 30 minutes, and I just felt her pain in that moment, in the way Robert comforted her at that time. And I took a picture of what you mentioned, him hugging her, because it felt like that needed to be captured. And I'm just so grateful for the spirit of Meghan and how it encouraged me and inspired me even before I got here, you know, with the way she built her own table. That's literally a hashtag I use, because I take the inspiration of her life, looking at her and the way she created opportunities for everybody and didn't wait for folks to create those opportunities for herself or the people that she loved and believed in. And I just wanted to share that. That was it. Is there anybody else that wanted to?
Excuse me. Greetings, all. It's so moving to hear all of these stories of Meghan, whom I was a big fan of, her work and Revive music. I came to know Meghan through Simone Eccleston, and she and Simone had put together some type of, I'm sorry, let me introduce myself. My name is Kaisha Johnson. I run an organization called Women of Color in the Arts. But Simone had put together some type of panel discussion up here in Harlem when Simone was at Harlem Stage. I don't even remember who else was on the panel except for Meghan. I don't even remember what the discussion was about. I just remember the intentionality in which Meghan moved in the room. And I remember how focused she was and directed she was at every question that was posed in that room. Now, I had already been a big fan of Meghan's work, and this was around, I don't remember, it might have been around 2015 or 2016, because my son, he probably was 2 or 3 years old at the time. And we wound up, all of us wound up going downtown to see one of the shows that she was producing. I don't remember. I've worked in many genres. I've worked in jazz, I've worked in hip hop. And Meghan asked me, she said, so you only work with women? And I said, yeah. She said, well, what's that like? How do you do it? Because these, she used some savory words for the men in the room that I have to deal with is a lot. I said, yeah, and I'm, was probably about 15 years senior to Meghan. I said, I've worked in many of those spaces, but I made it my choice to do something different and to elevate and amplify women in our spaces, just like you're elevating and amplifying all of these incredible musicians and the talent, showcasing their gifts. But she said, what is that like? I said, it's good. Keep creating intentional spaces. But we wound up going, I can't remember who it was that we went to see at the Blue Note, but she was producing that show. We went upstairs. And what was powerful to me is just the way that she handled everything. The way that she moved through spaces and having to deal in a male-dominated industry like the music business, which I know very intimately, is hard for anyone, especially a young woman. And yeah, I was just proud to see that because, representation matters. When you see something, you imagine that I can do that too, and that's what she gave to a whole generation. And so for that, I just want to say thank you to her.
I have one very quick story. I'm Ryan Maloney. I work here at the National Jazz Museum in Harlem, and I did not know Meghan as well as any of you. Our paths crossed consistently in different ways, and Meghan did a lot of things here over the years, but the friendship wasn't, the same as what you guys have been sharing. But I'll tell you one quick story. We did an event here shortly after To Pimp a Butterfly came out, and I asked Meghan, can we have a conversation? Can we talk? Can we bring our audience in, which tends to skew a little bit more traditional? Can we bring this conversation here to the museum? And she said, of course. And she said, it'll be me and Igmar, and it'll be great. And I said, great, wonderful. So the day before, she's like, Igmar can't make it. And as the presenter, I got a little nervous, but one thing that I hear everybody saying, Meghan was capable of extraordinary things, really extraordinary things. And she said, don't worry, I'll find somebody. And Anna Wise came, and it was amazing. It was an incredible conversation. And in the middle of the discussion, right where you guys are sitting, she gets a phone call. And she's like, wait a minute, it's Terrence. So she's like, let me see if he'll do a FaceTime with me. So we got the computer out and put the computer up on the piano, and there's Terrence Martin joining the conversation. We plug him in. And Terrence was like, well, I just saw Thundercat today. We need to have him in on the conversation. So we get a second computer out, and we get a FaceTime. So now all these 4 people are there. And then shortly thereafter, Kamasi Washington walks in to Thundercat's apartment. So now they're all there, right? And we have these 2 laptops and the FaceTime and the phone and Meghan and Anna, and it's just like cobbled together. But it was extraordinary, you know? And we couldn't have, there's no way we could have made that happen if we tried for a year to coordinate those schedules, to make all that happen. But Meghan was capable of extraordinary things, and we were all blessed to be, you know, a witness to what she produced and what she presented. So very, very fond memories, and really cherished the limited time that I had to spend with her.
Is there anyone else?
Thank you all so much for being here in person and online. And I hope that we'll each find ways to continue hearing music, sharing music, and continuing Meghan's legacy in any way that we can. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Kyla.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Kyla.
And our final Winter Jazz Festival Talks event is here at 7 o'clock, a collection of female leaders in the jazz world all getting together to have a conversation. So if you feel like it, grab a cup of coffee next door, come back at 7. We'd love to have you back.
Who's coming?